Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Hey everyone, it's Kayla and welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to bring you my September wrap up. So in September I read a total of 6 books, 4 were physical books and 2 were audiobooks. I definitely had a much better reading month than I did in August, and I really enjoyed a lot of the books that I read last month, so let's get into it. The first book that I read is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. This is the first book in what I believe is a trilogy or a series of some kind called Hot and Hammered. In this story, we follow Georgie and Travis. Georgie is a clown in her small town, so she dresses up as a clown, goes to parties, does little party tricks and things that all clowns do, and nobody takes her seriously. And Travis is what you would call a washed up baseball player. I think he plays baseball. Yeah, Major League Baseball. And he was like the typical playboy, always sleeping around, always having fun with the ladies, you know, that was his persona. And then he is back in his hometown, back in Georgie's life, because she used to have the biggest crush on him when they were younger. And they end up making a kind of arrangement where they want everybody to take them seriously. They want people to look at them as, you know, not a washed up baseball player and not a clown. So they end up fake dating just so that everybody can see that they are different people, that Travis is a family man, that he can get this job that he really wants. I believe the job is like a commentator of some kind, and he wants to look like a family man so that he has more of a shot of getting the job. And Georgie wants to be taken seriously, to have people look at her not like a child, to look at her as an adult. She's in her early 20s. She's living on her own, you know, she's bought her own house with all the money that she's saved from doing her parties. And she just wants people to look at her and be like, yes, Georgie is an adult. Yes, she can do these things on her own. So she wants people to take her seriously, and Travis wants to land a job, so they decide to date one another, or fake date, so it looks like that they're in a relationship. I really enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun. It was definitely a really fun contemporary with some steamy scenes and a lot of beautiful romance, and it's really opened my eyes up to the world out there with romantic contemporary stories, because I've only really read YA, but I haven't really read a lot of these adult ones that aren't necessarily the smut ones that I generally go for. But this is perfect sort of adult contemporary romantic read, and I really enjoyed my time reading it. It was nice and simple, and it had the fake dating trope, which was a lot of fun. And if you're wondering what the cover is all about, Travis, being a washed up baseball player, needs a job at some point before he can get this other job that he's aiming for. So he is working as a handyman for Georgie's brother's company. So that's the whole point of this. He's working as a handyman and he helps Georgie out with a couple of things, and that's how they sort of start talking again, and you know, that sort of thing. But it is honestly really good, and highly recommend for somebody who wants to read something that resembles a rom-com. I believe I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. The next one that I read was The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson, and oh my goodness, did I love this one so much. I have only recently been getting into reading middle grade, and this is one that has come highly recommended, and I'm so glad I read it. It was just beautiful. It was definitely different than what I expected, but it was so beautiful. So this one takes inspiration from Russian folklore, specifically the tale of Baba Yaga. Marinka is our main character, and her grandmother is Baba Yaga, and she is training Marinka to be a Yaga, which is kind of like a guardian for spirits who need to move on and to cross over. So they help the recently deceased to cross over and make it a pleasurable experience and share their memories as well. But Marinka is different. She doesn't want to be a Yaga. She just wants to be a normal 12-year-old girl. She wants to make friends, and it's really difficult because the house that they live in has chicken legs, and that means that this house is constantly moving around. Every so often it will just jump up and move to a whole different place, and she can't keep these friends for very long. She can't have a normal education. She just wants a normal life, and she wants a house that doesn't move. Not only does the house have chicken legs and can move, the house also actually has its own personality, and I think that was so much fun that the house had its own separate character. I sort of expected it to be more of an adventure where Marinka has a normal life and she's experiencing what it's like to be a normal person, but it was so much different to what I had expected. We got to meet a bunch of different characters. It was very, very emotional, especially halfway through and towards the end, but it was honestly written so beautifully, and I really loved this story. I definitely cannot wait to read her next books in this particular series. So I think the next one is The Girl Who Speaks Bear. That is on my list to read next. I honestly love Sophie Anderson's writing. She's just a beautiful writer. And I also gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. The next one that I read was an audiobook, and that was Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. As you probably know from my previous videos and vlogs, I have really been getting into reading Christina Lauren books. I read one series of hers, the Beautiful Bastard series, a couple of years ago, and only recently have discovered more on Scribd, and I honestly love them so much more than the Beautiful Bastard series. They have been a lot of fun to read, so enjoyable, just like their own romantic comedies, and I love them. And Love in Other Words really was a roller coaster ride of emotions, no kidding. So this is one of the ones that I didn't really have much interest in reading. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of the whole second chance romance thing, which is what this one is about. So this one follows Macy and Elliot, who used to be absolutely in love when they were younger. It was like a typical teenage romance thing. They started off as being best friends, and then it eventually just grew into more than just a friendship. But then something happened and they didn't talk to each other for about a decade. And then 10 years later, of course, they run into one another, and it just brings up all these old feelings, and they start to realize that maybe they should talk about what happened between them, and maybe they should actually deal with these problems that had happened that caused them to not want to talk to one another. And it was so much better than I had expected it was going to be, because like I said, I don't read a lot of second chance romance. It's not something that I'm always in a hurry to pick up and read. It just doesn't interest me all that much. But this was so well done. I've loved all of Christina Lauren's books that I have read so far, and this one and The Unhoneymooners are probably my favorites at the moment, but this one is definitely at the very top. It was like, okay, I didn't expect it to be as emotional as it was, because of course I knew that there was something big that happened. Of course, you know, I was waiting to see what this big thing was that happened to them, and it was just way more emotional than I had expected. I cried, I was a mess, and as I was listening to this, like, I just could not stop sobbing like at the end of it. It was crazy. I was just an absolute wreck, but it was beautiful, and I think the reason it made me so emotional is because I didn't expect it. I expected something bad, but it just was way too more overwhelming. It was way overwhelming, and I was not prepared for what happened. But this is kind of along the lines of what a Nicholas Sparks book or film is, because you have the romance but you also have the drama. So it's not like a typical romantic comedy like, say, The Unhoneymooners is. It is definitely a lot more of a drama, and I highly, highly recommend it. I think it was just amazing, and yeah, a real tearjerker. The next one that I read was probably my most disappointing read of both the month and the year. Unfortunately, I had, well, not really high expectations, but I had hoped that this was going to be good, going from the previous books that I'd read in this series, and that was As Old as Time by Liz Braswell. This is one of the books in the Twisted Tale series, which is a bunch of different books, all twisted versions of the Disney movie fairy tale type stories, and this one is a twisted tale on Beauty and the Beast. The ones that I'd read before were So This Is Love, which was a Cinderella one, and Let It Go, which was a Frozen one, and I really enjoyed them both. So This Is Love is definitely my favorite one. Going off my enjoyment for those two, I thought I was going to enjoy this one because, hello, Belle, Beauty and the Beast, that is my jam. But no, no, it was just terrible. Like, I gave it 2 stars, which I very rarely do. It just was not my thing. It started off okay, but then it went really, really weird, and then the ending was just so bad. Belle was not Belle in this. Belle was very whiny and very angry. She wasn't the Belle that we know and love, and it really made me mad because I love Belle. You know, it's one of my favorite Disney movies, one of my favorite Disney princesses, and to me, it kind of butchered what we love about Belle and what we love about Beauty and the Beast. And I understand these are meant to be sort of like darker, more obviously twisted versions of these stories, but it just was not good. So this is meant to be where we find out that Belle's mum was the one that cursed the beast and cursed the castle. We see through sort of flashbacks. So we see from when Belle's mum and dad got together, and then obviously progressing to when they had Belle, and the fact that the whole town absolutely hates magic. Magic is becoming sort of a crime. People are dying mysteriously who have delved into magic or who are like witches or just practice witchcraft. And then we sort of flash to the present, which is where Belle is, and the normal story that we know of Beauty and the Beast and her going and saving her dad and becoming the Beast's prisoner and everything. And then when Belle realizes that it was most likely her mother who cursed the castle, her and the Beast sort of work out why and what happened and how to break the curse. It sounds like an interesting concept, and I really liked the idea of it. And I liked the flashbacks because that was interesting to see a glimpse of the past before Belle was even in it. But it just wasn't well done. Like, I didn't like Belle in this. I didn't like the Beast. Even the characters in the castle, like Lumiere and Cogsworth, they just weren't them. The only people that I really enjoyed were Gaston, surprisingly, and Mrs. Potts. They were the only two characters that I was reading this for, and I was so close to DNFing this, but I didn't. I pushed through, and yeah, I just didn't enjoy it, unfortunately, which sucks, but it just wasn't for me. I hope the rest of the ones that I read are going to be good, but I definitely don't have very many high hopes. But yeah, I definitely feel like my hopes were shattered when I read this. The next one that I read was actually my favorite of the month of September, and that was The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. You guys have probably heard this all over Instagram, all over YouTube. It is definitely a very hyped book at the moment, and honestly, it deserves all the hype that it gets. This book follows Leon and Tiffy, who end up entering in an arrangement where they have to share a flat. It is a one-bedroom flat, which means that they share the bed, but that isn't necessarily a problem for them because Leon works as a palliative care nurse, so he does a lot of night shift work and he's away on the weekends. So Tiffy gets to occupy the flat because she does 9 to 5 throughout the week, Monday to Friday, and then she gets the weekends in the flat anyway. So they start off just sort of sharing the flat together. They leave one another notes, and you know, they have this like little fun sort of banter relationship. And then obviously, as we know, it's a romance. It's going to progress to a lot more, and it was really, really good. It was the perfect kind of romantic comedy to get me through after the awfulness that was the book before this. But I loved this. Her writing was so much fun. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it because Leon's perspective was written very differently. It was written sort of like, I wouldn't say bullet points, but like a lot of sentence fragments. And I got used to it after a while because I was like, you know what, this makes sense. This is how I imagine Leon would actually talk. He just definitely had that kind of persona. And Tiffy was so much fun. She was just a beautiful character. So she is dealing with a lot of ex-boyfriend drama, and Leon also has his own side stories where he's trying to track down a past lover of one of his patients. And there's just so many moments that made me laugh, made me want to cry, and there was a lot of serious moments as well. I definitely do say there are some trigger warnings as well, so you might want to research a little bit before you read this, especially in regards to like emotional abuse. But it was just a perfect mix of romance and drama and emotion, and all the characters were wonderful. Like I said, I really loved Tiffy, and her fashion sense was so whimsical. I loved it, and their whole like relationship was just fun. and it brought each other out of their shells and made them more confident, and I loved it. I loved everything about this, so that is why it was my favorite book of the month. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to reading more of her stuff because I really liked her writing. So as you can tell, I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I read was actually an audiobook as well that I listened to on Scribed, and that was Royally Screwed by Emma Chase. I'm not usually a big fan of the royalty type tropes where you have like the prince who's like experienced life in the real world, and then you have a girl who's like a waitress, or she works in retail, or and then like doesn't realize that he's a prince, and then she does, and then they get together and they have like a connection, and then she ends up being in the castle and learns how to be a princess and royalty and yada yada yada. It's not really my type of thing. It's not something that I'll go out of my way to read. I like the idea of the royalty stuff, like especially in Cinderella, rags to riches type thing, but this sort of type of love story just does not do it for me. And I think I just picked this one up because I needed something quick to get through to finish off the month. And this book was okay. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, so it wasn't amazing. It had its moments where I enjoyed it, but I liked the main character of Olivia. She definitely was fierce and feisty, and I enjoyed her. And then we have Nicholas, who is the prince. I liked him at first, but then towards the end, he started to really, really piss me off. Like, there were some things that he said that I was like, no, buddy, no, you do not get to speak to women like that. That's ridiculous. So I didn't like him towards the end. But essentially, as you can probably tell by what I've already said, this follows Prince Nicholas and Olivia Hammond. Olivia is a waitress and she works in her family's cafe, and she's always baking pies. Like, that is what she does because she wants to make it work for her family. And then one night Prince Nicholas is in town and he stumbles across the cafe, and him and his friend decide to take a seat. They are both drunk, Nicholas mainly more so very drunk, and he starts saying some obscene things to Olivia in trying to hit on her, but in a very, very obnoxious way. He basically wants to pay her to have sex with him. He offers her like $10,000 to have sex with him, and then she throws a pie in his face, and that is how the connection happens. But yeah, it follows them and their progressive relationship and her dealing with the media and kind of dating a prince. And yeah, it was weird in some parts and frustrating in a lot of the parts. Like, I just really just wanted to get through it. Even the sex scenes were really weird. Like, some parts of it were okay, and I was like, I like this is good, this is steamy. But then they would say something and I would cringe because there was a lot of stuff in there that was like, no, you don't say that, please don't say that, that is just bad. I don't know, it had its moments where it was okay, and then the rest of it was kind of eh. So I'm probably not going to read the rest of the series because it doesn't interest me that much, but it was good enough to finish and get me through the last part of the month. So well, there you go, guys. That is the 6 books that I read in the month of September. I really loved the fact that I got to read some lovely romantic comedies as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe and the usual stuff. And if you want to comment down below your favorite book of last month or your favorite book so far of the year, go for it. But yes, I will see you guys in the next video.